Hello everybody and welcome to another Nerd News review. My name is Tyler and today I'm going over Across the Spiderverse. And I do have to say I was very nervous going to see this movie because the first one is so good. I did not know if it would be able to live up to the hype and how good that last movie was. But fortunately, I do have to say, I don't think it only was as good as the previous movie, but I think it was actually better. But with that, I'm just going to start at the beginning. And for those of you that haven't seen the movie, minor spoiler warnings ahead, but I won't go too much into detail of how things work out. So the movie actually starts out with a big portion of it being dedicated to Gwen, about 15 to 20 minutes, where you actually see the events of what she talks about in the first movie with what happened to her, Peter Parker. And seeing the art style that they use to portray Gwen's world really does set an incredible tone for the rest of the movie. And getting to see all of the different worlds in this movie is by far one of the best things a Spider-Man movie has ever done. Visiting these other worlds is by far the most fun in this movie for the simple fact of seeing all the different art styles of each character. So not only are you seeing different aspects of who they are, but you literally see the world that they live in through the lens of the artists. And really no two worlds are the same. Gwen's world has a completely different hue and artistic style to Miles's or Spider-Punk or any of them at all. Or even just the hub world that is kind of the crossroads of the Spider-Verse. And just to keep talking about the art, this is one of the most gorgeous movies I've ever seen. There's honestly not a single frame in this movie that is boring to look at, and I was engaged the entire time. Didn't even realize that the 2 hours and 20 minutes of this film's runtime had even passed by. It went by so quick because you are literally watching a 2 hour and 20 minute moving masterpiece. I'm hoping going forward when it comes to animation, other studios look at Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse as not only a revolutionary step in animation, but honestly an industry standard. It was one of the best looking movies to date, but with that out of the way, I want to get back to the plot a little bit more. After we get back and recoup with Miles, you kind of see how he's been doing since Gwen left and what happened in the previous movie. And it's right here when we reconnect with Miles that you meet the new villain, Spot. When I first saw Spot in the movie, I really thought it was just a throwaway villain to kind of get you back into Miles, and then you could see the real villain later. But they did one of my favorite things that I've seen with the progression of a villain in a movie, where he does start out as a petty criminal, but then just skyrockets to insane levels that was really fun to watch develop over the course of the movie. And although his motivation was just anger at the situation with Miles, which I won't spoil how they're connected, but it was fascinating to see his growth in this movie as some petty criminal to interdimensional menace. All of the returning cast did a phenomenal job, and props to the writers as well, because it had some of the most organic dialogue I've seen in an animated movie in a long time. But one of the biggest stars that was added to this movie was Oscar Isaacs, who played Spider-Man 2099. And I do have to say, this portrayal of Spider-Man 2099 was incredibly good. He was very tragic. He had reasons for doing what he was doing. In the trailers, they kind of portray him as this bad guy, but it was more of a, hey, unfortunately, this is the way that things need to be. And as much as I don't like it either, this is what has to happen. So it was a real emotional struggle for the character, and Oscar Isaac did a great job in bringing this character to life. Because this movie does deal with the multiverse, the amount of references and nods to other movies and Easter eggs are on an insane level that I'm sure that even though I've been a fan for a long time of Spider-Man, maybe only caught half of them. The sheer amount of stuff packed into this movie is nauseating with how just crazy it gets at some points. So with all the good out of the way, I kind of want to talk about a couple things that irritated me. And I want it to be known, there's not much. There's really only two small things about this movie that I wasn't 100% on. Now, the two things that I do have an issue with are the biggest spoilers that I'll be talking about. So if you do want to skip the last half of this video, I completely understand, because that has to deal with how the movie kind of ended. So the first thing that kind of felt weird about this movie was at the halfway point, they built up this really good climax with the villain Spot. And then after this huge fight where it almost felt like an end game, we've lost, but hey, we're recouping to be better, they just kind of abandon it for a while. and it almost becomes a separate movie. It really feels like there's a 1 hour movie up top, and then they completely shift gears, and the last hour and 20 minutes is completely dedicated to something else, to where Spot kind of becomes an afterthought for a very long time. And that directly relates to the end of the movie. So the end of this movie, you basically find out that this is part 1. And that really annoyed me. It didn't affect the actual quality of the movie, but sitting down to kind of see that the last hour, as beautiful and amazing and as fun as it was just kind of a really big lead up to what is going to be another movie, was equally as exciting as it was disappointing. Because on one hand, it just kind of ended. There was a "we'll be back," really kind of anticlimactic. There was a big reveal for like a subplot that was about to happen in the new one. But at the same time, I thought this was just going to be a standalone movie. So to immediately find out that they're continuing Miles Morales' story was incredibly exciting. So it was just really mixed feelings that led to the credits of this movie. The last thing that I want to break down is kind of the B plots of this movie. This is where I feel like a lot of Marvel has been lacking lately, where they're just nonsense kind of stories. They get thrown together and they're not very good. But Across the Spider-Verse had a very important, really heartwarming feeling behind it, where a lot of this movie is about family and staying connected to your loved ones and making sure that you spend the time that you have with them together and happy. And that kind of heart put into a Marvel movie, I feel like has been missing for a long time. And with that being said, this is a Sony movie who I kind of feel is better at that kind of stuff, outside of Venom, really. But it was great to kind of see that heart back in a superhero movie again. So to wrap up Across the Spider-Verse, I have to say, between the subplots, the way that the actors really pulled these characters together and brought life into them, and the absolutely gorgeous art styles that this movie brought to the table, it is a solid 9 out of 10. The only reason I didn't give it a 10 is because I wasn't a huge fan of the advertisement-y kind of ending to lead to another movie. And I can comfortably put Across the Spider-Verse as second place for all my favorite Spider-Man movies, with really the only movie being better than it probably being Spider-Man 3. I'm a really big fan of that movie, maybe just a bit old school, but I really just don't think that Across the Spider-Verse was able to have that pizzazz that Spider-Man 3 had. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and in the comments, tell me what your favorite Spider-Man is and why it's definitely Spider-Man 3. And I'll catch you in the next review. Thank you for checking out Nerd News, everybody. We don't have advertising, so you are the advertising. If you like it, tell a friend, like, comment, subscribe, even leave a review on Apple. Everything that you do to support us, we truly appreciate it. And we actually just launched our Patreon, so if you'd like to support us even more, you can go check that out. All of our content is free. We have different rewards for different tiers, so check that out. And thanks again. We'll catch you next time.